that would be great. Thanks everybody for coming and for being on time. So thanks everyone, even the bots that we have there. So what we're going to talk, we're going to talk data centers today. Thank you, Jatin, much appreciated. And we're going to do it with an expert. It's a friend of the house. His name is Gino Napuri. And Gino is the senior manager of construction scheduling for the Americas and Entity Global Data, where he leads scheduling strategy and execution across a portfolio of mission critical data centers, right? He's going to talk about that as well. He has more than 25 years of experience in large case construction projects, and he's an expert building high performing teams and delivering complex infrastructure with predictability and clarity. And he's been contributed to major projects for organizations such as QSRA, PG&E, ExxonMobil, bringing deep expertise in project controls and risk-informed planning. So it's a privilege to have him here. So please make a lot of questions. He's been really generous with his time. So well, thank you for support again, for your support, Gino, with this webinar. The floor is yours, and please use the chat. I will be answering the questions or taking all of them. So you please focus on the presentation, and I will interrupt you if there's anything that has to be responded on time. Thanks, everyone.
Hello, everyone, and thank you guys for this great introduction. As I mentioned, my name is Gino Napuri, and today we're talking about data center and scheduling and the risks associated with it. This is an improvement from a similar presentation that I did over 5 years ago, and this is hopefully an updated version where you guys need to get a little more update of how the industry is going. Obviously, it's a front and center, so it's really good to share what's going on. So let's see. First of all, I just want to make sure you guys understand that before we dive in, I want to be clear that I'm here sharing my personal experience. I've been in the scheduling world for over 25 years, and today we talk about general market trends and public data. It doesn't reflect the specific internals or the secret sauce within an entity, my current employer, but rather the broad best practices we should all be following in the data center space. So obviously, this is for educational purposes. It's my personal capacity or my experience. There's no proprietary material for my employer at this time. Or internal data or trade secrets. Of course, does not constitute corporate endorsement of any specific software or third-party group by entity. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, so you guys understand where this presentation is going and where I'm coming from. Okay, so quick agenda. I'll introduce myself, then we'll go into an introduction for data center. I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and this is the best way for me to understand. So the introduction to the data center and the data center layouts is more of a beginner introduction for those who are curious about how is it broken down and things like that. And then we're gonna go more over the challenges and the meat of the matter, schedule and risk management. And we have question and answer. This is more of a conversation whenever possible, so feel free to ask the questions and interrupt or raise your hand or whatever the feature there is in this meeting, and ask me questions. If you would like to, guys, go ahead and interrupt me whenever you have any questions, especially if I talk too fast, because this is a very interesting and passionate subject for me. So I would like to make it engaging as possible. But I do speak very fast when I get very excited. So if you need to ask me to slow down, I'll try my best to do so. Okay, so a little bit about myself. As guys mentioned, I'm a senior manager of construction schedule and entity global data centers here in the Americas. I have a very strong team building multiple data centers throughout the region. Before this, I have various certificates, as you can see: project manager professional, PMI schedule professional, and everybody professional. I used P6 for a long time, and yeah, I'm very. One of the first things that I ask when I start any projects or anything is like, how is the schedule linked with the risk in these projects? And unfortunately, most of the time, the answer is not linked at all. Anyways, other projects that I worked on here in Cincinnati, I'm based out here in Cincinnati, Ohio. We have the Brent Spence Bridge being rebuilt, a $3.46 million project. I set up the standards and scheduling procedures for that project last year. Cargill, a great company, food processing company. Of course, my first experience was at Google as a consultant for the East region, Pacific Gas and Electric in California, California High-Speed Rail, and the Clipper car, the MTC. So different clients and projects that I have worked on. And currently, I'm the president of AAC Southwestern Ohio here in Cincinnati, and also the vice chair of AAC PPEB subcommittee. So let's get started. The landscape itself. We're going to talk about basically how the data center world has expanded, but we'll start from the roots of what a data center is and go all the way through to where we are now. So basically, a data center is a house with IT on it, mostly servers. It's a physical building, and it's important to mind that the data centers are built for the sole purposes of operating IT equipment most of the time. Today, we're relying on the IT equipment to underlie software for almost all our daily activities. Even this is not possible if it wasn't for data centers, this conversation or this meeting. So there's different type of stakeholders in the data center industry. There's the hyperscale leads that you all know, and front and center, that basically they primary focus is serving at scale. Their customer base is public or crowd internal, and it's massive campuses. One site has multiple buildings with a lot of megawatts being produced at a time of power, and this is basically they are basically the four majors here in the States, and a very good companies to work for as well. It's a great experience. The data center world as a whole is very dynamic, interactive experience. So if you are interested in it, you should definitely consider it to be part of it because it's not going anywhere. So the other part of the coin, the other side of the coin is what is called co-location leads, companies that you don't know very much about, but they basically rent those IT rooms or the server rooms or the data halls to clients, to companies that need information store. ClarisQ, Vantage Data Center, Equinox, and CyrusOne are one of the most important ones, with the most volume or with the most data center, of course, NTT. So I did this, as I mentioned, I did this presentation 5 years ago, and I collected this information. It's all public information. There's nothing, but I thought it was really interesting how things have changed in these past 5 years. There were 3 million facilities considered data centers because there were closets where you can store data, and now there's not that many, but they're not that small anyways. As you can see, square feet. And this is I'm going to go into a funny story. When I worked at Architectural Glass and Aluminum in California 20 years ago, 20 years ago, basically it was a small company. They installed they design, manufacture, install the glazes, the windows for the high rises all over the West Coast. So great company to work for, with great team. 300 strong on the warehouse building, doing all this physical work. But there were only 25 of us in the office, and I had to wear many hats. And one of them, besides being the master scheduler for the company, was to be the IT guy. So they did have one of these, small little closet room with a server rack and install Primavera, install the CD in there, and I have to manage that and the internet. So yeah, basically multiply that by millions and all over 20 years ago. And I'm more than sure that I should check in with them and see where they have their data, but I doubt the server is still practical or useful for them, and they have the information in one of these more co-locations. Anyway, so that's the concept of the two different type of data centers. So the layout. Basically, the layout is very straightforward. The blue areas with the data center hall. The CNR is the heartbeat of the data center. Central network room or network room. They have similar names for the same room. It's basically where all the wires end up before they go into the servers to be processed. The electrical building is where the power comes from. The backup generators and the fuel for those generators are in green and usually in a separate area or in a separate room from the actual hall. The substation that provides the power, obviously, to the data center, the cooling building, chemical treatment plant. There's a lot of chemicals running through, and they had to be cleaned, and the cooling tower that cools down the air. So this is a basically layout of the most generic of a data center. Sometimes the shapes could be different. They could be 2-story high, 3-story high. They could be on the shape of an H, or also called butterfly, where one data center hall is in the left, the other one is in the right, and in the middle is the offices. Usually in the 2-story building like this one, the office is in the first floor. So how does this look like? I haven't changed this slide much from when I did it 5 years ago, because it's one of the most most colorful slides that I have. So on the left-hand side, we have the chiller, central network room, Jim, Tracy, sorry, central network room usually, or network room. Sorry, I'm not able to answer all the questions because it just pops on the side of my window. But if it's a short question, definitely, thank you. I can definitely answer right away. Sorry. Anyways, so yeah, we have on the chiller on the left-hand side, top left. Then we have the central network rooms, or the top middle of the CNR, and then basically we have the data hall where the information gets stored, or and then we have the external. So this also I wanted to mention. This is the fuel stations, and then there's the fans or the cooling towers right there. And then the right-hand side is ideal the scenario for power, where you have a substation and also solar panels. This is obviously not here. This is in Europe, but definitely it's a good example of what can be done to combine both natural power and other the traditional types of power. So where do you put these data centers? It's very interesting that a lot of things, and this is more to the crux of the matter, is the fact that the data centers could be technically anywhere, but there's better locations than others. So what to take into consideration? This particular one, and usually there's two types of data center. Usually, it's a greenfield or brownfield. Greenfield is when you open, there's nothing on the ground, and you start with underground work and then foundation, and then you build a data center. Brownfield is a place that already exists that you improve on. This one in particular is a data center in Finland that was restructured to be a data center because of the location, obviously. So what are things you have to consider? This particular one, for example, was a paper mill from the 50s, and then transformed into a data center, in 2009. But what makes there is the energy the location is ideal. The colder it is, the less the machines heat, so the less power you have to use to cool them down. Common sense, right? Energy, you have to make sure you have a good networking connectivity and relationship with a power utility company where you're trying to build a data center, and open relationship to understand what makes it important. Internet, of course, you need to have the network, not just the electrical utility, but also the network and the fiber running through the air, running up to your data center ideally, so you're able to be to connect fast to the rest of the world. And the one that hasn't been mentioned a lot because it's just like it feels now like it's like an understatement. I'm trying to think the right word. Basically, it feels nowadays like tax incentive is like unexpected. You expect to have tax incentive to build a data center. It's not like unless it's in a really busy area. Here in the States, at least, tax incentive is like a afterthought. Like that's something that usually happens in most data centers. Europe's a little bit different, from what I learned as well. So, anyways, another fun particular interest about this particular data center from research, just because I shared this with the internet, was that this is the first data center in the world to use 100% seawater cooling system. So that's kind of interesting, also from the Baltic Sea. Anyway, so yeah, this is a very sample of how can you improve on something that already exists. Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit more beyond the considerations and the execution and safety in regards to the data center and how you build them. Challenges, as we mentioned, there is challenges every time of any industry. Communications, reporting issues, timing, and accountability. It's really hard to be able to be successful in anything you do if you don't communicate with the team or have the right stakeholders making the right decisions within reasonable time. Also, the reporting could be convoluted. The timing for the information could also be challenging, and the accountability. Sometimes people just don't do anything and they expect to keep their jobs. So yeah, this is just a high level scenario of what are the challenges in the industry. No, and which is most probably related to other things. So what are the success factors to actually be more efficient in regards to these challenges? Community awareness. Basically, as I mentioned, you have to make sure that you are able to have the right community. There's a lot of backslash and false information about what data centers do or don't for different communities. And definitely it's going to be, it's a hard spot to discuss. And I would like to make sure that you guys, that is front and center in every data center company that I've been involved with, to make sure that they have good engagement with the community. Funny thing is that community awareness is very important, not just in data center, but in anything. When I was working on the high-speed rail, 15 years ago, one of the first I remember I was doing my first earned value report, and I saw the line item for community and outreach for the high-speed rail in California, which was a very high value because we wanted to make sure that the community was aware and involved in the process. So transfer it transcends the industry for sure. Procurement transparency. We're going to make sure that the cost and everything is aligned ahead of time. No surprises, kind of things. And this is the most important one for me, I think, is use the A-team. If you go to my LinkedIn, you also notice that my summary of myself is like, I think people make the difference. If you have the wrong people doing a simple job, will take much longer than having the right people do a complex job. So, having the A-team, make sure their program and project managers have proven track record and experience and support and eloquence and all that stuff is very crucial. So scheduling sequence, make sure that you are able to set up from the scheduling perspectives the right time frames and realistic handoffs. The preliminary durations are very easy to challenge if they're wrong. When I see a baseline and I see an activity, a bunch of activities that have 5 and 10 days durations, I know that I didn't put an effort into it. But very unlikely that every task in the WBS lasts 5 or 10 days. So definitely make sure that the sequence and makes sense and it's not just a cookie cutter approach. And of course, having the critical path from the beginning, identify what needs to be done when as a priority is very important to do early and often. So yeah, all these success factors that definitely need to be done early and often. So what are the challenges within this success factor that can delay or cause issues? So basically the safety rules, it's data centers. This is more data center, related. Electrical safety, make sure that everybody's aware of their surroundings. Identify hazardous materials, have to have the awareness of where live power is, control, starting work, make sure that you're aware of, lockout, tag out procedures and know what to do in case of hazardous energy. A lot of high working, a lot of cherry pickers. I forgot what they're called. Those I call it cherry pickers, but they have a proper name. To go up and pour out the piping and put tacks together. So you need to be aware of that. Make sure you have the envelope clean at all times. You can see there's nowadays something that it wasn't there 5 years ago that I think now is that the cherry pickers have lasers around them, so you see the actual envelope. I thought it's very cool, so you don't walk near that close to it. Assess the risk, as I mentioned, it has to be aligned to be addressed prior to starting work somewhere. Besides include, PPE is always very important to make sure everyone's wearing their helmets and be safe, because any of these things that don't get proper analysis and report and consensus and follow-up slows down the project. And lifting and handling, obviously, there's a lot of the servers and a lot of things that need to be moved around all the time. Definitely got to make sure that we have that available. Something that I noticed in one of the projects was that the data center hall design had 2 regular standard, 2-door access to the room. But when it was in the, but it was when it was being built, they the general contractor opened up, they didn't install the frame in an area, so it'll be easier to move back and forth between data centers whole while still possible. So definitely avoids having to go through those doors, or deviate from the path the best path possible to move things from one place to another. Anyways, I digress. Definitely gotta make sure the data center rules make sense. So in general, from the scheduling perspective, how you do what's the life of a scheduling in regards to a data center? This is mostly front-end planning scheduling. This is how you prepare and manage a summary schedule. So most of the industry call it integrated master schedule before the general contractor gets on board, or before the construction starts. To be honest, just try to keep a high level of the things that need to be done before construction and through construction as well. But in general, this is what you do with the process of even building a data center, which is all not time-driven. Time is critical, obviously. So you have your front-end planning, location planning, and coordination team. Somebody requests a data center, realize they need a data center somewhere in a region. So a team goes and looks what's the best location for it, and they make a decision on go, no go. If it's a no go, obviously they have to look for and keep looking until they find something. If it's a go, they distribute that information to the stakeholders, to the team internal, and see, this is what we're going to do. If it's a new site, then you, if it's not a new site, then you create a summary schedule for that project, for that particular data center building. And if it's a new site, if it's not a new site, you just maintain the schedule within the same group of other projects within the same site. From my perspective, the word site and campus are the same, if not similar. Usually in construction, they call them sites, and then after construction, they call them campus. So, but anyway, so for me, it's a project is one site could have multiple projects going on at the same time. So you develop the schedule, and then if the project gets funded, then you develop and maintain a detailed schedule. You do more than a summary schedule, and that's where the time when the project gets funded, when you get the baseline, that you get that baseline schedule from the general contractor, and then you hand off. The request complete is more like the handoff to the actual live or active part of the project construction. This right here is a visual of how the summary schedule could be developed. This is done with a tool called NetPoint. It could be done in Excel, it could be done in any other tool, but I just wanted to show you, have a visual of what happens during the time frame of a life cycle of a project. From the beginning, when you start looking for a place to build a data center, to getting the design and the foundations going on, and all the things that you need to, and the permits, and then you got the procurement, all the materials and all the stuff, and then at a certain point, the construction begins. This one has a 2-phase construction project, for example, and there's a second phase construction project, and then there's different milestones that you have to achieve as time goes by. As I mentioned, this is a very general scenario, but yeah, this is a even simpler summary: front-end planning, process, manufacturing integration, and then main construction. And that's usually a life cycle. You can do multiple at the same time, but this is just a general scenario. So yeah, here we come to the last part of the presentation and how this aligns with risk and scheduling insights, or what is going on, what things I expect to see in a risk log on almost every project, or and trying to see how you can do your QRA align with the schedule. From my perspective, the minimum standards that I have to that require is to the risk log, whatever that is, an Excel spreadsheet, a P6 risk tab, different risk tools, is to have an activity ID or a WBSID code or WBSID aligned with the risk being identified. So you see what will be impacted. And if that particular area has low flow, then of course it's priority 0 to make sure that you have the right tools to deal with it. So one of the risk issues at hand is long lead procurement, supply chain volatility. It takes forever to get things into the data center. Servers are very large, very complex to manufacture. There's a high demand for all this, backups and supplies. So you have to make sure you have You do the pre-purchase of your LLEs. Usually they're called LLEs, long lead items on the schedule, or I'm sorry, long lead items, and just making sure you have a procurement tracker to make sure that that information is done. And obviously you can align that with the with the schedule. That's even better. So long lead items, it's a very complex situation because usually the people that work on the long lead items are not part of the project controls teams. They're part of supply chain teams, and sometimes they know a lot more early in the project, but as the project matures, they sometimes get overwhelmed with other tasks of new equipment. So their main focus on the supply chain team is to make sure that they have guarantee tools that are guaranteed materials or things that they need a long time from now. So it's very complex effort. So maintaining an active communications and engagement with the LLE team is really important to be successful in the construction phase of the project. Another very important issue, of course, is safety and incidents. Everything is so challenging in the team and in data center because it's so dynamic and you have to do so many things in such a short period of time because the demand is so high to get it going that you really need to make sure that you prioritize the safety of your team at all times. The tailgate meeting at the beginning of the day, make sure it has the wear PPE equipment, is aware, when they work in confined spaces. And that's also alignment that is really important for scheduling. Sometimes there is the general contractor or the superintendent decide to move to the next area of any task before completing the previous one because something is missing or they don't have the space. But there could be another team working on the same area. So that coordination and making sure that people are stepping each other's toes gets more complex as you get closer to a project completion day because there's less space to move around. And this is extremely more challenging in Europe or smaller data center environments. Here in the States, most of the data center buildings are in very open fields with lots of space to do a lot of things. So even when you're closer to finishing, you still have reasonable space to move around. In Europe, they don't get that privilege. So it's a little bit more challenging for them to stay on top of safety for sure. Other risk at hand, of course, as you may know, is utility and grid interconnection delays. You have to have the substation. Without substation at this time, you cannot do much in regards to actually having a workable data center. Try to make sure you have really good engagements with the utility company. You get relationships, keep track of their dates, so make sure that they're moving through the process of building or maintaining or upgrading the substations. One of the things that have been on the news lately was the modular nuclear stations. Somebody said, when you if a submarine has I'm going to tangent here a little bit. If a submarine is able to, military submarine is able to have a nuclear energy, why can a data center? And actually, you found out the answer for that is because the level of the uranium or whatever it is that powers the nuclear submarine is very high, and it's not allowed for civilians to have it. The military has it because they're the military, but we cannot. So anyway, so there's a company trying to find a better solution than just the power grid, but definitely challenging right now because there's no solution happening. Going back a little bit, also I just remember about modularization or prefab before coming to site. The long lead item teams are also trying to improve on the time that it takes to build something up on the data center site by trying to see if they can obtain better, faster equipment with commissioning, a partial commission already done offsite. So there is less people on site, safety is better, and so on and so forth. So anyways, similar thing. Okay, so the other thing in regards to scheduling and the complexity of data center is the schedule drift. Lack of single source of truth has happened a lot in the industry. It's very easy to find out a few months after there's multiple aspects in regards to this issue at hand in regards to data center construction. And in the industry, again, this is a very industry, industry issue, construction industry issue. Have I been, in my experience, have I submitted schedules just to check a box without looking the actuals, without knowing if it really happened? Yes. Have I done ghost schedules for clients that wanted to see something, but the reality was another? I'm not going to say no. Have I been involved on realizing that a multiple source of data for the same information? A lot, and that wasn't mine. So all this makes things more convoluted and more confusing for the stakeholders that make a good decision about the situations. A quick example was a while ago, a schedule with a data day of April 1st was uploaded. The data from the schedule was uploaded into a Power BI dashboard. So we have the P6 schedule with a date, okay, with an April 1st data day for this activity X. Goes into Power BI. The person that built the Power BI put a last refresh day, and without explaining further to the stakeholders. And then the last refresh day is every day, because that means, and I used Power BI before. I've been using Power BI for a long time now. The refresh day is when the server and the API goes into the backend and pulls the data from the source, in this case P6. So the refresh day is April 15. April 15 is the refresh day on the Power BI. So a stakeholder goes into Power BI to see activity X date, and it looks like the date is April 30th, for example. And then he goes to meet with the team that provided that data, and they said, okay, this is going to be done on the 25th. And he goes, why? Oh yeah, because because that's what we gain time. And so how do you manage to gain time? I'm being positive too. Most of the time it's the opposite. So it's like, we're going to be done next month. But anyway, so well, how do you gain time? And I just pulled the data from Power BI, and it shows that the refresh day was April 15th, so you're going to be in April 30th. Why did you get this April 25th? Oh, and he goes, that April 30th was the date for what we submitted a schedule with the data day of April 1st. So you see that disconnect. The stakeholder went to Power BI not to schedule it, to ask him for data, and the outcome was that the stakeholder was not aware, the stakeholder was off, and usually is this situation I don't remember when things go right. The situations remember when things go wrong. They're not gonna go back and do a paper trail, see what happened. They're just gonna look forward and said, don't look at the Power dashboard because the schedule is not right. And they don't understand why, they just pass on the conversation. So having educating the team to understand that, number one, that refresh day should not be in the Power dashboard. Let's begin from that. And the data they should. So they can see data day. If they don't know what a data day, they can ask the scheduling team, or they can ask the Power BI teams. Like, that's the data day that the P6 shows. So anyways, this drift, these changes is very common in the industry, and we have to make sure that we have to have a single source of truth, and we educate the stakeholders on how to read the data as well. Don't assume that they know what the data means just by looking at dashboards or even a PDF in P6. Okay, so the other complexity at hand, of course, is the commissioning and ITS. In general, from experience, a lot of the commissioning work has been put in the back end. When I see a baseline schedule for a general contractor, they just have a giant bar for commissioning that has 2 to 3 months at the end of the schedule, and right after that, project completion, and that's a huge risk. There has to be a redundancy. There's and the commission is basically tested to make sure that things work. So usually there's no perfect commission. So there's things that fail once in a while, or the equipment doesn't arrive on time, or there's a lot of things for commissioning to be challenging. So definitely you need to be aware that the commissioning could be a challenge for a project, and you're aware, and you make sure that you scrutinize the information with the GC from the beginning, and you demand for more detail how they manage to do commissioning before before you approve a baseline or accept a baseline for that case. Okay, so with that said, I believe I'm on my last slide. Yeah. Thank you again for everybody for listening. I hope that you get something out of this, and I'm very thankful for your time. Gus, go ahead. Any questions that I might be able to answer?
Let me see if we have questions. I have a couple myself, but
Okay.
let's see. Let's give everybody some time for questions. If not, I will shoot right away. So I had one. I remember when you mentioned about the A team. So I imagine that, of course, depending on the magnitude of the project, your team is going to be bigger. But normally, how big is a team outside of the providers, right, outside of the contractors, that you will have to manage to create an average size data center?
So the average size data center between 50 and 100 megawatts nowadays, the building. I mean, I'm just being very, very broad here. So it depends on the organization. Some organizations run lean and they feel confident enough to put a lot of the burden on the GC to just deliver on time. And some organizations are more engaged and they have more stakeholders. So I've seen teams that has been from just a project manager and construction manager and the project controls team, one or two project controls team, one to cost management schedule. So the bare minimum I've ever seen has been 4, and the maximum has been 15. So in just on-site from the owner's perspective with OR, with owner representative. So yeah, it depends how much engagement there is from the PM and how much for the owner, and how high in demand the project is expected to be successful and finish on time.
Thank you. There was one question, and the other is because I saw that you mentioned which are the main risks, right, about the scheduling and building. But what do you think are the main risks when you have the data center in operational mode that you will have to consider?
Yeah, so the biggest data centers are never done from the owner's perspective. There's always something to improve. There's going to be more different new technology coming in, changing the servers, changing the changing the environment, the offices. Improving on the offices, breaking things up. So the risk is coordination. That there is a specific team for that. All they do is like post project completion, construction project completion date, and the operations team. And I'm not talking about just janitors and security. I'm talking about like people coming in and doing work while the project is live. The intensity, the organization security that increases because there's more stakeholders. There's more security, more secrecy, more privacy. The servers are live, so you have to make sure that everybody comes in and out are extremely vetted, and they plan to do no harm or any mischievous things while they are at the data center. So yeah, you can have people working on repainting conference rooms within the data center, or replacing servers, or replacing wires. The things that cannot be done by the actual owner's team. That is a challenge to keep track of that for sure. That's why there's a dedicated team for that.
Excellent. Thank you. I think that we have one question from Abhishek. Abhishek, I gave you the mic, so maybe if you unmute yourself, you will be able to speak. We cannot hear you. I'm very sorry. It's like you're very far away from the mic.
Hey, Gustavo. Thank you. And Gino, it was a great presentation. Appreciate the time you guys taken here. Myself, I'm Abhishek. I work with Yates Construction in Texas. I have a general question about data centers. Like, we are currently working on a couple of hyperscalers as well. Um, the amount of labor, like, we are all in an industry where we are all chasing the same. Like, there's multiple companies, I'm sure, in this meeting as well, who are all working on data center jobs. So my question is about the labor and the amount of commissioning agents. Have you guys seen any concern about it? Like, we are in a fashion of turning over probably like multi megawatts per month, when we are doing like multiple data halls inside a data center. So what's your like experience or strategy with getting the right commissioning agents going with the amount of turnovers that we would have to do, apart from and also that, and also how do we how are you guys using any kind of strategies to attract more labor, because most of these data centers are not in a city but they're in remote locations. Just want to hear your thoughts and schedule risks regarding that.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your question. Yeah, definitely. From the owner's perspective, labor is something that they have to keep an eye on, but it's up to the GC, when they sign the contract, Yates and the holders of the world, they promise to get something delivered with the labor at hand. I'm well aware there's labor shortages all over the United States. When I was a general contractor, my previous employer at the Ben Spence Bridge, one of our biggest concern was how we're going to get all those people that need to come in and build the bridge in a short period of time. We don't have the labor capacity here in Cincinnati. So logistics get put in place way ahead of time to make sure that there is an outreach plan to get all the union halls aware of the work upcoming, so they can help move people in. Thankfully, here in Cincinnati, there's infrastructure in regards to hotels and things where people can stay, be traveling waiters, traveling construction, traveling laborers. But yeah, I see the challenge. It has always been a challenge. Even 5 years ago, it was always a challenge to get the right laborers. Thankfully, that's the other reason for modularization. With that, you won't need as many people here. If you come to the site with yellow tag already in place, then you don't have to worry about having that many people on site. So yeah, it's a combination of things, making sure you plan ahead of time, make sure you informing people, the stakeholders that need to be informed about the situation, have a tally of how many people you need to have at the peak to make sure they are able to come and help you deliver the project on time. Modularization, trying to get things done outside the site so you don't have to have that many laborers doing the work. But it's a combination thing, and some projects benefit more than others in regards to that. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, from the industry perspective, I've seen it when I was at Walsh, and it's never easy. But hopefully things get better now.
Thank you so much, Gino. We had one more question, and this is from Vicious. He said, thank you, Gino, for this. This is helpful. Just curious, when it comes to commissioning an entity/cloud HQ, who is responsible for commissioning? Is it the folks renting the DC, or is it entity? That's what he said.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I cannot provide answer to that question. That's an entity a specific question.
That's what I imagine. Yeah. No worries.
So yeah.
Was going to be confused. Yeah, and I have a last one, and this is out of curiosity because of one thing that you said in this slide that you updated. So do you see a trend for consolidation here to be less data centers with bigger, megawatts and square meters, or how do you see that, or is it a mix? How do you see this in the next 5 to 10 years?
So the landscape, I don't see the landscape changing much at this time in regards to the size and the software. Everything comes down to the chip NVIDIA. So it depends. Everything shifts to the size of the hardware within the servers. And I haven't seen any groundbreaking discovery on making it smaller or making it faster or making. The last one was liquid cooling. That's the new trend, right? But the thing is that I believe the size is, I could be wrong, but I believe the size of the space needed for the liquid cooling is the same as the current size. So the whole structure is not going to change much. There was a decision, you have to make sure that you have the right right plan in place for future approaches. And that's the thing that I personally feel kind of uncomfortable with, the fact that we're building so many large buildings that might become, that maybe data centers will be the shopping malls of the future. Where they're empty because we find another way to do it, whatever. So that's my biggest concern. But again, just like the Industrial Revolution, some things fall down, some things don't work out and get put to the side. And but I mean, the buildings themselves could be used as warehouse storages, so it won't be completely destroyed or wasted because, they're practical buildings with air conditioning. But yes, it's not. I don't think it's not livable because there's not enough enough. It's not livable for like apartments or anything like that. But it could be at least a storage. So yeah, that's my biggest concern. Like we come up with something that you don't need that much space. That's my biggest concern. But in regards to the current footprint, the current expansion, the demand for data centers is going to go much higher, exponentially higher in the next 10 years. So we're just trying to, with what we know, we're going to try to build, everybody's trying to build what as much as they can in as fast as possible because it's the next, speaking of, it's the next moon space race to the moon. That's what it is.
Excellent.
And hopefully, we are all successful, and everybody uses it. Hopefully, the computer works and the system works, and we're able to be better than what we are right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Gino. Yeah, this is something I was always curious about, but I was waiting for the question until this presentation today. And well, thanks everybody for staying. And it's been almost an hour now. And thank you again very much, Gino, for the presentation. We will upload this video during this week to this Wednesday. Yeah, and we will do it this week. So you can watch it again in case you missed part of it. And thanks again, Gino, for your generosity and your knowledge.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming in. It was a pleasure being here, and wish you the best today and always. Take care.
Thank you, Gino. Bye-bye.